blue sky. Oh, it dies again. Two lies.
Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Steph and today I have a very exciting vlog because this is loosely going into a new series that I'm starting where I give books a second chance. If you've been watching my channel for a little while, then you will know I've said this on multiple occasions. I'm a very moody reader. It ebbs and flows with my mental health. So the first book that I am going to do a dedicated reading vlog for this loose series of giving books a second chance is King of Scars. So I'm really excited about this, but also very nervous because I don't ever hear very good things about this. I think when I first read it, I got a quarter of the way through and I just wasn't feeling it at the time. But I really love Shadow and Bone. I really love Six of Crows. I love the entire world and all of these characters. And King of Scars is following one of my all-time favorite characters within the whole group of people that we meet in both series. So that's why I was so excited about this. I mean, I think so many people were very excited about this and disappointed, but I'm gonna give it a second chance because I'm a piece of garbage and Rule of Wolves came out and I bought it. So I'm gonna also be reading that, but I'll probably do a separate reading vlog. To give you a little bit of a backstory, I actually love Shadow and Bone a little more than Six of Crows based off of nostalgia. I read Shadow and Bone at the time when I had just graduated college. I was really in an uncertain place in my life and I read it and it made me fall back in love with reading. It made me fall back in love with fantasy worlds. It was the first YA fantasy series that I had probably ever read because by this time I had read either urban fantasy or dystopian, but I don't think I had ever read a fantasy novel at the time that was YA. And it just made me fall in love with reading again. I did research on Leigh Bardugo after reading it and I fell in love with her. But I also read it before I read Six of Crows. And so I think that had I read Six of Crows first, it probably would be a different story. I probably would love Six of Crows way more because it is better written, it has better characters, it has better character dynamics. But Shadow and Bone, I love it. I really do. I'm trash for Shadow and Bone. What can I say? So going into this the first time, I did think that I would love this more than probably most people because I really did love Shadow and Bone and you're kind of going back into that world with a lot of the same characters, but I wasn't loving it. So I'm ready to reread it and see. I'm in the mood now that the show's coming out. I'm really excited. I've actually wanted to reread everything, but I'm not gonna have time. The show comes out next week. Also, I'm gonna make a few predictions. I don't have a lot of predictions because I actually don't remember what this book is supposed to be about besides Nikolai and the fact that he is dealing with being a beastie. So my theories right now are that Zoya and Nikolai are gonna be together. And if they're not, I will riot and tear this book apart. Second theory, I think that Nikolai is going to spend a lot of time trying to find a cure for whatever the Darkling did to him. And then I don't know what's going on with Nina. Like I remember something happening with her where she found a bunch of dead girls, but I don't know what's going on with her. I feel like the only thing I can say is she's just gonna go on this really difficult mental journey where she's still grieving for Matthias and like trying to figure out how to move forward in her life. But I'll keep updating you with theories. I'm gonna update you with my thoughts, my feelings. Here's the thing, you guys. I forget that Leigh Bardugo is the queen in my eyes. My opinion. This is my opinion. The queen at pining in books. She always can pair characters that just pine for each other, and it gets me every single time. I am not a romance reader. I oftentimes have complained about not really wanting a romance in specific fantasies. and that it doesn't feel necessary, but it feels necessary in these books. Like, I am pining with these characters. I want them to be together, and I don't feel that way that often. And I forgot that Nikolai and Zoya, they just have a thing right now. I mean, I'm sure it's going to be through the whole book. They have this thing, this weird relationship where it's very clear that they want to be together, that they like each other, that they feel this spark, this chemistry, and they just can't be together because I think a lot of it has to do with their positions. I mean, he's a king and she's, I guess you can call her a general, and like, he should marry somebody from a different class and make alliances and whatever. And this is something that Zoya is talking about. So like, their romance isn't something that should happen because it's not strengthening the kingdom, but like, it should happen. And then I forgot that I think I know why this book wasn't working for me last time, and it had nothing to do with me disliking the plot lines or anything like that. It's the fact that Nina's perspective feels so disjointed from Nikolai and Zoya's perspective. I don't really understand it. Like, I get why it could fit to some degree because Nina is trying to safely get Grisha from Fjorda, because if you remember from the other book, Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, they're considered witches in Fjorda, and I think they're killed or imprisoned. And so she's trying to save them, like find them, save them, and recruit them into the Second Army to strengthen their army, because ever since the Darkling did everything that he did, a lot of the army died, and so they've been pretty vulnerable for a while. So I get that that's how her perspective fits into this story, but it just feels like two separate stories because no one's really talking about Nina in Zoya or Nikolai's perspective, and Zoya and Nikolai are not really talked about that often in Nina's perspective, and it just feels like two different stories being forced into this one story. I like what Nina's doing. I like Nina. I've always liked Nina as a character. I do like the fact that we're following her through her grief and her trying to piece back her life and her purpose after Matthias died. So like, I do like that, but I just don't, how does it fit here? It just doesn't make sense, but maybe if I keep reading, it'll make sense. I don't know. Hi friends, good morning. It's the next day and I didn't really update you last night because I didn't really read anymore. But I am up to chapter 7 now. But I decided to update you because I've been thinking about this for a little while. I am realizing slowly that I didn't really remember the ending of Ruin and Rising, but Nikolai doesn't know that Alina is alive. I guess because that's how he's talking about it, which is so weird because him and Zoya are very close, and I feel like if he finds out that Alina is alive and nobody told him about it, that he'll be upset. I also didn't really think that would be, I mean, okay, so I knew that they would call back to the war because the war is the reason why Nikolai is going through what he's going through, right? So I knew that they would have references back to both Six of Crows and Shadow and Bone. But I didn't think that they would talk about it as much as they have been, and it makes me wonder if the Alina thing is going to become a conflict at some point between him and Zoya. Besides the fact that they're fucking in love. They're in love. I just finished chapter 8 where Nina lays Matthias to rest, and what the fuck? It was so sad. I don't cry very often at things in books, but when it comes to like grief and people burying somebody and like having to deal with their grief, what the fuck? I hated it. It was such a good scene though. Nina, poor Nina. Not David just casually threatening somebody and calling Jenya his wife. Where was my invite to the wedding? How did I miss this? Did I just miss like a huge plot point at the very beginning of this book that they were married? I'm gonna be honest, I don't really know why I disliked this book when I first read it, other than like mental health stuff, which is very typical of me, but I'm really enjoying this story right now. I'm really happy to be back into this world and to get to know Zoya more and getting to know Nikolai more and just the shit that he's going through with his little beastie powers. I also think this cult thing is pretty interesting, like the cult, the Darkling cult, and the fact that they're like trying to figure out why this guy is so obsessed with the Darkling. Hi, it's been a few days. I had to put off reading King of Scars because I just had other things that I needed to read for a book club and then a read along. So I put this down and I'm getting back to it now. But I've tabbed, I'm like 177 pages into it. I was just reading and then I remembered I haven't updated you guys at all. I don't know what the last thing I actually talked about was, but I think I was talking about the Darklings, like religious cult, the cult that wants the Darkling to be recognized as a saint, how they took in one of the guys who's like the leader of this cult and they were questioning him. Okay, so as much as I like the Darkling as an antagonist, the thing is, I really don't want him to come back in this book. And I mean, I could see if it's possible that Leigh Bardugo has a great explanation and can execute the Darkling coming back in just like a very compelling way, then yeah, maybe I can get on board with it. I do remember the ending of Ruin and Rising, and it was him being pretty shocked that he died. And he had to have known that Alina was not going to choose his side. There was a possibility, even if he didn't fully believe it, even if he wasn't fully invested in the idea that Alina wasn't going to choose his side. I do think that he was smart enough to know that he needed to have a game plan just in case that he was killed. And so if that is executed well, if he really is back, if something's going on with the fold and it's because of the Darkling returning in some form, in some way, then it better have a really, really compelling explanation, because if it doesn't, I don't know if I'll like this book. And this is making me wonder if this is why people didn't like this book. So that's what I'm feeling right now. But I really do love being in Zoya and Nikolai's perspectives, because you get to see a lot of the characters that I loved from the last books. I really love Zoya. I know a lot of people don't like Zoya or didn't like her in the last books, but I love her. I love her for being sassy and strong, and like she comes off as an asshole to people, but I think there's more to her story, and I kind of have always felt that way, and you're starting to get that in here, and I love it. I love learning about her. And like I said, I'm sipping so hard for Nikolai and Zoya to be together. Yeah, but I'm having a lot of fun learning about where everybody is at in their lives that were in the Shadow and Bone trilogy, so that's been really fun. But today I don't have a lot going on. I do have to finish an art piece that I was commissioned to do. I have to finish that. I'm very close to being done with it, so I'll probably listen to the audiobook for a little while and then start physically reading. But yeah.
Blue sky, oh it dies again. Two lies will wash into pretend. Our time will be forgotten. But love it, 'cause I don't think you do. Don't show it. American dream come true. I'll have a dream.
I can't believe Zoya is out here being soft for Genya. And then freaking Tamar and Nadia are married. First it was David and Genya. I can't handle it. I don't know what the fuck is happening right now, but they're in the fold. And 1 minute I'm crying because Zoya is like, so long have these women in history, can't even talk about it. She's just talking about how women in history have always been erased. Why is this so emotional? Anyway, she's talking about women in history being erased and she needs to be the voice for them. And so she's like getting angry at this zealot who is like the Darkling. So many of his enemies talk negatively of him, but they never speak of the great things that he did and the great things that he wanted. And Zoya's like getting so angry because she's like, what do you mean he killed so many people that can't speak for themselves anymore, and I need to speak for them? I love Zoya. Okay, we need to get that out of the way. But anyway, she starts to get really angry and she's messing around with the windstorm, and then suddenly they see this like palace thing place, whatever, and it's possible that Volcra are back. It's possible it's a trap. I'm so confused. Genuinely, I don't want it to be the Darkling, but like if it is. There was also another moment where they discussed the possibility that the Darkling somehow put his like consciousness into Nikolai via the darkness that he put inside Nikolai, and the possibility that Nikolai wasn't the only one that has this consciousness, because when Nikolai is in his monster form, he can speak, but it doesn't sound like Nikolai. It sounds like the Darkling. So now I'm curious if maybe Nikolai is doing things without him knowing, because of the fact that when he goes into this beast form, he doesn't remember anything. In a lot of instances in the beginning of this book, when he's gone into beast form and gotten out, they don't know what he does in the meantime before they find him. That's what I'm thinking of. That's my theory, is that it's Nikolai. That Nikolai is actually the one causing all of these problems and doing all of these things, and he just doesn't know it because he's a beastie boy.
Living for you. Found you in my life and it was alright. Still don't know why you're here tonight, but I let you slip away.
Okay, so things just took a really weird turn, and I don't know how I feel about it, but basically that Shadowfold thing happened, and it turns out that the saints, you know, all the saints that they're always talking about in this book still are alive. They were reborn into different forms. So one is like the form of a dragon, one is like a bee woman, and so they still exist, but they're stuck in another version of the Shadowfold, and they've been stuck there for 400 years. Well, guess who stuck them there by creating the Shadowfold? The Darkling, obviously. So the Darkling isn't back, but they pointed out that the Darkling lives within Nikolai, and that's why they're still stuck in this weird purgatory. I just don't know how I feel about this storyline now. I'm starting to feel a slow descent into disappointment. I wasn't really enjoying what was happening in King of Scars, and then it was Zoya's perspective where she was talking about her life and like almost being married off and her aunt saving her. I love Zoya so much. I just feel like I relate to her so much. Oh my god, books usually don't make me cry. Why does everybody hate this book? It's not the best. Like, the Nina perspectives don't really make any sense to me, but like, Zoya. Sweet baby Zoya. Who would have thought that Nikolai's book, one of my favorite characters, I just don't even care about him. I care about Zoya. One thing I did forget to say, though, is that I do feel bad for Nikolai. I think he's not going to be able to get a fucking break. Why do I love this book so much? Everybody hates it, I guess. I don't know. Everybody talks about how they don't like this book very much, but I'm over here being a big fat baby because Zoya and Nikolai just had a moment, the moment of all moments I've been waiting for, where he's finally like, oh my god, I love her. So he basically says, the more I know of you, he said, the more I am sure you are exactly what Ravka needs. In that moment, he wished things might have been different, that he might not die tomorrow, that he could be led by his heart instead of duty, because Zoya was not kind and she was not easy, but she was already a queen. Stop it. Okay, well, I I think it's because I've always loved Nikolai a lot. Like, I've always just loved Nikolai as a character. I think he's the most strongly written character within the Shadow and Bone world, not including Six of Crows. But I've always loved Zoya, and now you get this book where Zoya is just being vulnerable and you're learning so much about her. And the thing that I wasn't even enjoying, the whole Saints being alive and in this like parallel shadow fold, actually isn't that annoying to me as I thought it was going to be. It's pretty interesting and it's pretty well explained for the most part. Anyway, just wanted to give you another blubbery update, but I'm almost done with the book. I think I have 70 pages.
You say it don't make mistakes. Too bad I'm just no. Walking closet, designer pair of shoes. Say you don't have much, but you ain't got much to lose. I can tell you how many were jaded.
So the Darkling's back. That's not what I wanted. I am really disappointed in this ending. I'm disappointed that Leigh Bardugo really did do that. That Leigh Bardugo really said, I'm gonna wake up and I'm gonna choose violence today. I'm gonna bring the Darkling back. And I'm like, Leigh, nobody asked for that. Nobody wanted that. I don't know how to rate this book. I don't even really know how to talk about it at this point because there was so much that I really did enjoy. I just don't like the idea that the Darkling is back. Why? So this is hard because I do really love a lot of things about this book. And I think up until the Darkling being a possibility of really coming back and then actually coming back, I was like kind of sold on the fact that I was going to love this duology. But now I'm not really sure how I'm going to feel about the next book because I cannot get past the Darkling being back. Why? Good morning. So I had to collect my last 3 living brain cells after reading King of Scars to figure out like a star rating and to figure out the things that I liked and didn't like about this. And I think I'm settling on a 3.5 stars because that ending. As a matter of fact, I feel like the last like 90 pages were insanity and I just didn't understand what was happening half the time and I didn't really enjoy what was happening, and then the Darkling came back and I was like, oh no, oh, no. So let's talk about the things that I didn't like about King of Scars. So obviously, you know, I don't like the Darkling being back. I think that's weird. It's weird. And here's why. Because his plotline is going to go one of 2 ways, possibly 3, but my mind goes to one of 2 things. He's either going to die again, so what was the point of bringing him back? And his death is going to involve getting Alina and Mal out of hiding to help fight him again, which I'm foreseeing. That's my theory for the next book, is that we're going to see Mal and Alina again. We're going to see the crew link up. My second thought process is he's going to have a redemption arc, which in what freaking universe is this man gonna have a redemption arc? In what universe? So to me, it's like we brought this man back for nothing because he's dead again. He's gonna die again. Speaking of villains and people being brought back, Jarl Broom being brought back, while that one was less annoying as the Darkling, I still would have liked to see a new person as the villain, just like a new villain in general. Even the Beehive Woman would have been an interesting villain because of the way that saints are revered in this world. Like, the saints are revered so heavily, and imagine one comes back and is like, I'm killing everybody. I want to be a god. Imagine how that would shake the faith of so many people. That would have been interesting, but that's not what we got. Speaking of the saints and stuff, I think I said in the beginning I didn't really like that plot line, and I didn't like the sandcastle thing. I didn't really know what was happening in that whole section, even though I knew that it was supposed to be to get the beast out of Nikolai. I'm still confused about that section, and the only thing I got out of it that I liked was the dragon and Zoya's relationship, and then Zoya being able to use his scales as an amplifier, but then now he's like a part of her, and this is an interesting turn in like the magic system as well as how amplifiers can work depending on what type of amplifier it is. And I guess the last 2 things that I didn't enjoy kind of tie into one another, and that's the fact that we had Nina's perspective, which I felt really took away from Nikolai's perspective. because the whole point of this book is that it's Nikolai's duology. It's Nikolai. This is supposed to be about Nikolai. You don't really know anything about Nikolai by the end of this. You don't get a lot more about Nikolai by the end of this. You get a lot more about Zoya. If anything, this is Zoya's book. But had Nina's perspectives not been there, you probably could have gotten more from Nikolai, and maybe it would have felt more like his book. I don't really get how Nina's perspective fits into this. They are two separate stories. They do not connect. There was two convenient times when in each perspective, something was mentioned about the other people. So in Zoya's perspective, she asked Nikolai why he sent Nina away. I thought maybe something would tie it together, but nothing ever ties it together, and nothing in her perspective is ever fully explained. And I'm sure in Rule of Wolves, we'll get more, but we don't know what that poison was. We don't know why they were giving pregnant women Jurda Parem. I still don't know how to pronounce that after all this time. But I think that also goes back to the fact that you couldn't get invested specifically in Nina's perspective because it was the least amount of chapters in this book. I liked the parts where Nina was really dealing through her grief because you get to see that. And I think that Nina had a good story in general, but it just doesn't fit here. And it was almost like Leigh Bardugo thought, I don't have enough for two different books, so let me just shove it into this one book and call it a day. So that's what I didn't enjoy. But the things that I really enjoyed, I think I made it pretty clear. Like, I love Zoya, and I love that Zoya is so vulnerable in this book. If you were not a Zoya lover from Ruin and Rising, you possibly could become a Zoya lover in King of Scars, which I already really liked Zoya. I see a lot of myself in Zoya because she hardens herself to the world. So I just see a lot of myself in Zoya. I mean, obviously I love Nikolai. I just wish I would have gotten to know him a little bit more. And I really did love the themes in here of women being used at the hands of men trying to gain power. This was actually a theme that was very heavily in Nina's perspective, but also in Zoya's perspective as well, because even though Genya should have had a perspective instead of Isaac, but there were many moments when you're in Zoya's perspective and you hear Genya speaking about what the Darkling did to her, because you have this cult who believes that the Darkling should be a saint and revered, and they're like, hello, do you see what he did to us? And there's one specific quote that I'm gonna read to you because it was one of the quotes that definitely made me cry when I read it. So Zoya asks this man who just loves the Darkling why he loves him, and he's basically saying that because he loved Ravka, he loved all of us. And she asks him, like, who's Ravka? Who did he love that makes up Ravka? He replies, all of us, peasant and prince alike. And then Zoya responds with, of course, did the Darkling love my aunt who died beside countless innocent civilians in Novosibirsk so that he could show the world his might? Did he love the girl he forced to commit those murders? What about the girl he tossed into the old king's bed for his own purpose, then mutilated when she dared to challenge him? Or the woman he blinded for failing to offer him unswerving devotion? Who would speak for Liliana, for Genya and Alina and Bagra if she did not? Who will speak for me? And then the guy just goes on saying that great men are often the victims of the lies told by their enemies. And Zoya, getting angry, where is the shrine to my aunt, to Saint Harsha, to Sergei, to Ormari, or Fidyor? Who will worship them and light candles in their name? She felt the unwelcome prickle of tears in the back of her throat and swallowed them down. These people did not deserve her tears, only her anger. And then it's chapter 25, and I started marking at page 390. It's where Zoya starts to really dive into her story and why she decided to change alliance from the Darkling to Alina. And that whole chapter it was very sad. At one point, she is sobbing and asking the saint who she's talking to, the dragon guy, why didn't you come? So I love Zoya, and I love the theme of women being hurt at the hands of a man trying to be in power. And this is something that's talked about in Nina's perspective, because a lot of the women are Grisha and they're pregnant and they're being forcibly addicted to Jurda Parem, especially when they're pregnant, which again, you don't know the reason behind it, but the person behind it is a man. So I enjoyed that theme being explored a lot in this book. And I don't know, I love Zoya. I love seeing more of Zoya. I love Zoya and Nikolai's relationship. I liked being back in this world. I liked being able to see old friends and seeing that many of them are married and what they're working towards. But I just wish we would have had a new villain and not this recycling of villains. And maybe if Nina's perspective fit a little bit better into this world, it would have been more enjoyable. I don't know. So yeah, I think I'm gonna settle on a 3.5 because there was a lot that I did really love about this book, but the last 90 pages, what happened? I haven't fully read any reviews about this yet, but I would like to know if your reasons for not liking this book are the same as mine. If you had other gripes with this book, just let me know down in the comments. I'd love to know your thoughts. Also, let me know some of your theories for Rule of Wolves. Please don't give me any spoilers if you have read it, but I'd like to know your theories for Rule of Wolves. I should be starting it in the beginning of May. So also thank you guys for watching, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.